Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt the weight of the world pressing down on your shoulders, like you're fighting a battle with life itself, wrestling against forces too great to control? If your answer is yes, let me assure you, you are not alone. But here's the truth. Life wasn't meant to be a battlefield. It's a dance. And the rhythm of this dance only becomes clear when we learn the art of surrender. Now, when I say surrender, I don't mean giving up. No, surrender isn't weakness, it's strength. Surrender is about trust. It's about taking all those fears, doubts, and anxieties, the ones gnawing at your heart, and placing them in the hands of something greater than yourself. Call it God, call it the universe, call it the divine. It doesn't matter what you name it. What matters is the act of letting go. Think about it. How much of your life do you spend trying to control every detail? We micromanage our futures, obsess over our pasts, and stress over things that haven't even happened yet. But let me tell you this, control is an illusion. The river of life doesn't flow because we push it. It flows because it's meant to. Imagine standing by a riverbank. You have two choices. You can fight the current, thrash against the flow and exhaust yourself in the process, or you can let go. You can trust the river to take you where you're meant to go. This is surrender. But surrender requires courage. Why? Because surrender means embracing uncertainty. It means saying, I don't have all the answers, but I trust that the answers will come. It means being okay with not knowing the next step, and yet walking forward anyway. And here's the beauty of it. When you let go, something miraculous happens. Life begins to unfold in ways you couldn't have imagined. Doors open where you saw only walls. Challenges become opportunities, and the burdens you've been carrying, they begin to dissolve. Why? Because you're no longer fighting life, you're flowing with it. Let me share a powerful truth with you. Surrender doesn't mean you stop working toward your goals. It means you work, but without the weight of fear. It means you strive, but without the desperation. It means you do your best and then leave the rest in the hands of the divine. So what does this look like in practice? It means learning to breathe in the face of chaos. It means whispering to yourself, I trust the process, even when the process feels messy. It means replacing the question, what if, with, even if things don't go as planned, I will find my way. Even if I stumble, I will rise again. Even if I don't understand, I will trust. Because here's the thing. Surrender is an act of faith. It's faith in the divine, faith in the unseen, faith in yourself. And this faith, my friends, is what transforms life. So I challenge you today. What are you holding on to that no longer serves you? Because when you surrender, you don't lose control. You gain peace, you gain clarity, you gain freedom. And isn't that what we're all seeking? So go out into the world with this truth in your heart. Life isn't something you conquer, it's something you trust. And when you leave everything in God's hands, you'll find that everything begins to fall into place. Surrender is often misunderstood. People hear the word and immediately associate it with failure, with giving up, or with defeat. But true surrender is none of those things. True surrender is one of the greatest acts of strength and courage a person can undertake. It's an act of self-awareness, a recognition that there are forces at play in the universe far greater than our individual willpower. It's about releasing the illusion of control that we so tightly grip and acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. And that's okay. And that's okay. When we surrender, we're not turning our backs on our dreams or goals. Instead, we're stepping into a place of trust. Surrender is not passive. It's not about sitting idly by and waiting for life to happen to you. It's an active choice, a decision to align with something bigger than yourself. It's about understanding that while you may not have control over every situation, you do have control over how you respond to it. You have the strength to face the unknown with grace and courage, to move forward without being paralyzed by fear. This kind of surrender also requires us to let go of our ego. The ego loves to cling to control because it fears vulnerability. It tells us that if we let go, we'll lose everything. But the truth is, when we surrender, we're not losing anything of real value. Instead, we're creating space. Space for growth, for healing, for transformation. By releasing our grip on the need to dictate every outcome, we open ourselves up to possibilities we couldn't have imagined. Surrender is strength because it's rooted in faith, not just faith in a higher power, but faith in yourself and in the inherent wisdom of life itself. It takes incredible bravery to step back and say, I trust. It takes resilience to let go of the fear that things might not go as planned, and to accept that even when they don't, it's all part of a bigger picture. The idea of control is something many of us cling to. We plan meticulously, strategize endlessly, and build elaborate systems to make sure life unfolds exactly as we envision it. We convince ourselves that if we just work hard enough, think far enough ahead, or hold on tight enough, we can direct the course of events and secure the outcomes we desire. But here's the truth. Control, as we often perceive it, is an illusion. Life is not a fixed script where we dictate every line and scene. It's a dynamic, ever-changing flow of events, circumstances, and interactions, most of which are far beyond our control. Think about it. How often do we plan for something, only to have life veer in an entirely different direction? A sudden storm ruins a carefully planned event. A health issue arises unexpectedly. The actions of others disrupt even the best-laid strategies. These moments remind us that control is never as absolute as we think. At its core, the illusion of control is rooted in fear. We fear uncertainty, so we try to box life into predictable patterns. We fear failure, so we seek to micromanage every detail. We fear losing what we love, so we cling tightly, trying to shield ourselves from the inevitabilities of change. But this clinging, this constant striving for control, often leaves us feeling more stressed. Consider the natural world. Does a river try to control its flow? What we often mistake for control is merely influence. Yes, we have the power to make choices, set intentions, and take action. But the outcomes of those actions, they depend on countless variables we cannot foresee or command. A farmer can plant seeds, water the soil, and nurture the crops, but the weather, the seasons, and the environment all play their part in determining the harvest. Letting go of the illusion of control doesn't mean we stop caring or trying. It means we shift our focus. Instead of obsessing over outcomes, we pour our energy into the process. Instead of wrestling with what we cannot change, we embrace what we can. We begin to understand that while we may not control life's circumstances, we always control our perspective, our actions, and our ability to adapt. And when we relinquish this illusion, something incredible happens. We find peace. We realize that life doesn't need to be dominated to be lived fully. We start to experience a sense of freedom because we're no longer shackled by the impossible task of controlling the uncontrollable. Control is an illusion, but trust, surrender, and adaptability are very real. When we embrace this truth, we stop fighting life and start flowing with it. In doing so, we discover a deeper sense of harmony, resilience, and inner strength. Surrender is often seen as the path of least resistance, something that happens when you've run out of options or lost the will to fight. But in reality, surrender is one of the most courageous acts a person can undertake. It requires a kind of bravery that isn't about standing firm or pushing harder, but about stepping into the unknown, trusting in something greater than yourself, and releasing your grip on control. The courage to surrender comes from a willingness to embrace vulnerability. Vulnerability is often uncomfortable because it forces us to admit. Surrender, on the other hand, asks us to acknowledge our limitations and take a leap of faith. A leap that requires us to trust in the process, in the universe, or in the divine. It takes courage to surrender because it means letting go of certainty. Certainty feels safe. We cling to plans, expectations, and routines because they give us a sense of stability. But life, in its essence, is unpredictable. When we surrender, we confront that unpredictability head-on. We stop resisting the natural flow of life and instead allow ourselves to be carried by it. This can be terrifying because it means stepping outside of our comfort zones and facing the unknown. Surrender also requires the courage to let go of the ego. This act of surrender often feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. You don't know what lies beyond the leap. And every instinct in your body screams to hold on to the ledge. But courage comes and you take that step anyway. Trusting that the net will appear, that the current will catch you, or that the path will reveal itself as you walk it. Another reason surrender requires courage is that it demands patience. In a world that values instant results and immediate gratification, surrender asks us to wait. It asks us to release our timelines, to stop forcing outcomes, and to allow things to unfold in their own time. This patience is a form of strength because it means resisting the urge to act out of fear or desperation. Fight the flow of life. It's like swimming upstream against an unrelenting current. The harder you push, the more resistance you face. It becomes a battle of wills between you and the forces of nature. And no matter how strong or determined you are, the current always has the final say. This constant struggle leads to frustration, fatigue, and a sense of being stuck. It makes life feel like a series of battles, each one harder than the last. Flowing with life, on the other hand, requires us to let go of this resistance. It's about understanding that life has its own rhythm, its own pace, and its own direction. Instead of trying to force life to conform to our plans, we adapt to its movement. This doesn't mean giving up on our dreams or ambitions. It means aligning our efforts with the natural currents of life, rather than pushing against them. Flowing with life also requires us to let go of our attachment to how things should be. So often we create rigid expectations for ourselves, for others, and for the world around us. When reality doesn't match these expectations, we feel disappointed, angry, or even defeated. But life was never meant to fit neatly into our preconceived notions. It is wild, unpredictable, and beautifully imperfect. When we accept this, we free ourselves from the need to control every outcome and begin to embrace life as it is, not as we think it should be. Another aspect of flowing with life is learning to trust in its process. Trust is difficult, especially when things aren't going as planned or when we face uncertainty. But when we trust the flow, we start to see that even the challenges we encounter are part of a greater design. The obstacles in our path are not there to block us, but to redirect us, to teach us, and to help us grow. Trusting the flow means believing that life is not happening to us, but for us, even when it's hard to see the bigger picture. Flowing with life also means embracing change. Change is one of the few constants in this world, yet it's something many of us resist. We hold on to what's familiar, even when it no longer serves us, because stepping into the unknown feels risky. But the flow of life is always moving, and when we resist change, we find ourselves stuck in stagnation. To flow with life is to welcome change, to see it not as an enemy, but as an opportunity for transformation. Another key to flowing with life is presence. If we're caught up in regrets about the past or worries about the future, we lose touch with the present moment, the only place where life actually happens. Flowing with life means immersing ourselves fully in the now, letting go of distractions and embracing what's right in front of us. It means recognizing that life is not a destination to reach, but a journey to experience. To flow with life is to learn the art of flexibility. Just as a tree bends with the wind to avoid breaking, we must learn to adapt to life's twists and turns. Flexibility doesn't mean abandoning our values or goals. It means approaching life with an open mind and a willingness to adjust. It means understanding that sometimes the path we planned isn't the one we meant to take. And that's okay. When we flow with life, this is where the principle of do your best and trust the rest becomes not just practical but essential. It's a mindset that balances effort with acceptance, allowing us to give our all without being consumed by the fear of failure or the need to control every variable. Doing your best means showing up fully in the moment. It means giving your energy and focus to what's in front of you and approaching it with integrity and intention. Whether it's a work project, a personal relationship, or a creative endeavor, your best is not about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about knowing that you've put forth your honest effort, even if the outcome doesn't align with your expectations. The idea of your best is not static. It changes depending on the circumstances. On some days, your best might be a 100% effort, overflowing with energy, clarity, and drive. On other days, when you're tired, overwhelmed, or facing challenges, your best might look different, and that's okay. The key is to show up with sincerity, knowing that your best, whatever it looks like in the moment, is enough. But the second part of this principle, trusting the rest, is just as important as doing your best. Trusting the rest means recognizing that there are factors beyond your control that will influence the outcome. It's about accepting that you can't dictate how others will respond, how circumstances will unfold, or how events will align. Life is full of variables, and when you trust the rest, you release the weight of perfectionism. Perfectionism convinces us that if we work hard enough or plan well enough, we can ensure a flawless result. But life doesn't work that way. Trusting the rest means understanding that perfection is an illusion, and chasing it only leads to frustration and burnout. Instead, you can find peace in knowing that you've done what you can, and the rest is out of your hands. Trusting the rest also means having faith in the process. It requires a belief that even if things don't turn out the way you hoped, there's a reason behind it, a lesson to learn, a new path to follow, or a hidden blessing yet to be revealed. This kind of trust allows you to release the need for immediate answers and instead cultivate patience and openness to life's unfolding. Moreover, trusting the rest is a practice of surrender. It's about handing over your fears, doubts, and worries to a higher power, to the universe, or simply to the flow of life. It's an act of humility, acknowledging that while you have influence over your actions, the outcome is not entirely yours to control. When you combine doing your best with trusting the rest, you create a powerful balance. You avoid falling into the trap of apathy or resignation because you're still giving your full effort. At the same time, you protect yourself from the stress and anxiety that comes with trying to control the uncontrollable. This balance allows you to work hard while remaining at peace. knowing that you've done everything within your power. Trusting the rest also means releasing judgment of yourself and of the situation. It's easy to second-guess your efforts or criticize yourself if things don't go as planned, but trusting the rest requires self-compassion. It asks you to be kind to yourself, to acknowledge that you're human, and to appreciate the effort you put in, regardless of the result. Surrender is often misunderstood as a form of disingenuousness. To address the human public successfully, when we surrender, not to circumstances, but to the flow of life itself, we experience a profound sense of peace, clarity, and freedom. Surrender brings peace because it removes the internal conflict we create when we resist what is happening. Resistance is a natural response to challenges, but it often creates more tension and frustration. We resist change, we resist uncertainty, and we resist letting go of what no longer serves us. This resistance creates a mental tug-of-war that drains our energy and leaves us feeling stuck. Surrender, on the other hand, dissolves this struggle. It allows us to accept the present moment as it is, without judgment or the need to control it. This acceptance is not passive resignation. It's an active acknowledgement that some things are beyond our control. When we stop fighting against reality, we find an inner stillness that allows us to face life's challenges with grace and composure. This peace comes from knowing that we don't have to have all the answers or solve every problem immediately. Surrender gives us permission to rest, to breathe, and to trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should. Surrender also brings clarity. When we're caught up in the struggle to control outcomes, our minds become clouded with anxiety, doubt, and overthinking. We get so wrapped up in trying to force solutions that we lose sight of what truly matters. Surrender clears away this mental clutter. It allows us to step back, gain perspective, and see things more clearly. Clarity emerges when we let go of the need to control every detail and instead focus on what we can influence: our mindset, our actions, and our attitude. By surrendering, we stop clinging to old beliefs, expectations, or fears that no longer serve us. This creates space for new insights and possibilities to arise. In this state of clarity, we can make decisions from a place of wisdom and alignment rather than fear or desperation. Finally, surrender brings freedom, the kind of freedom that comes from releasing the chains of control and expectation. We often tie our happiness and sense of self-worth to specific outcomes, believing that things must happen in a certain way for us to feel fulfilled. But this attachment to outcomes traps us in a cycle of anxiety and disappointment. When we surrender, we break free from this cycle. Freedom comes from realizing that we don't have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We don't have to have everything figured out, and we don't have to be perfect. Surrender allows us to let go of the unrealistic standards we impose on ourselves and others. It gives us permission to simply be, to live in the moment, and to trust that life has its own timing and wisdom. To conclude, surrender is not about giving up. It's about stepping into a deeper understanding of life and yourself. It's about doing your best, releasing what you cannot control, and trusting the flow of life to guide you where you're meant to be. When you embrace surrender, you open the door to peace, clarity, and freedom. You align yourself with the rhythm of life, and in doing so, you find strength in letting go, courage in trusting the unknown, and a profound sense of harmony within yourself and the world around you. So let go of the need to control every outcome. Surrender, not as an act of weakness, but as an act of wisdom. And in that surrender, you'll discover the limitless possibilities that await you. Thank you.